welcome to you as join us on today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuloko, PwC Journalist of the Year in Tax Reporting for the year 2016. We begin with the cheering news that the Federal Inland Revenue Service has collected a whopping sum of 1.782 trillion naira in the period January to June 2017. This is an increase of 224.14 billion naira over what was collected in the same period in the year 2016. The Executive Chairman of the FRS, Mr. Babatunde Fowler, disclosed this at the Budget Defense Session of the agency before the Senate Committee on Finance at the National Assembly on Tuesday, the 18th of July, 2017. Looking beyond media, looking beyond June, Mr. Fowler told the distinguished senators that the FRS had set for itself a tax collection target of 4.89 trillion naira in the year 2017 based on the federal government's 2016 to 2018 medium-term revenue framework. Mr. Fowler said that this will be largely driven by a projected VAT collection of 1.89 trillion naira, far and above the 828 that was collected in the year 2016, an increase of 125%. In the meantime, the FRS has also disclosed that tax collection revenue from oil sources has dropped by 9%, far below the collections in the year 2016. It is no longer news that the federal government, with the full cooperation of the states and in full collaboration with the states, has introduced the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VATES, into the Nigerian political economic space. VATES was launched as Aso Villa State House on Thursday, the 29th of June, 2017. And it took off on July 1st, 2017 to run till March 31st, 2018. 9 months. What remains now is for everyone to be carried on board, to be made to understand what VATES stands for. And all stakeholders are joining hands to make this possible. But suffice it to say that VATES is a scheme under which those who have failed to either pay their taxes or who have not paid in full. For example, you pay under pay as you earn, personal income tax. You work in a ministry or a parastatal or a company, and you only pay personal income tax on your monthly salary. That's not what the law says. Some of us have rental income. Some of us have shares from which we earn dividends. Some even have a small pharmacy shop at home where the Lord is blessing them. The law requires that you should declare all your income sources and pay due taxes. Under VATES, from July 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2018, you have the opportunity to come out clean and declare those hitherto undeclared income. And you know the beauty of it? No interest will be charged on those unpaid taxes between July and end of December, 6 months. No penalty will be imposed for the duration of the 9 months. Interest is 21%. Penalty is 10%. That's what the law says. But those two will be waived. Interest for 6 months if you declare between now and the end of December 2017. Penalty will be waived if you declare between now and the end of the VAT scheme in March 2018. And of course, no prosecution. Nobody is going to take you to court for not paying before. And no audit will be conducted. As we told you last episode, the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, in keeping with the directive of the acting president, has already hit the ground running. He has already hit the road. On Thursday, July 6th, Mr. Fowler led a retinue of top officials of the FRS on a roadshow, on a tour of the federal capital city, Abuja, to educate people about VATES. On that same day, another team of FRS officials were on Lagos streets. And on July 13, Thursday, July 13, the big masquerade, the Federal Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, herself hit the road. She was in Lagos, accompanied by the Executive Chairman of the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Ayodele Subel. Mrs. Kemi Adeosun went around the city of Lagos, went to shops to educate, to clarify issues, to assure and to reassure.
I'm sure you have your monthly taxes deducted at source, but you know a lot of people have other income, they have rental income, they have little businesses that they run. All those income are supposed to be declared for tax purposes.
Federal and the state working together, commendable cooperation, real synergy at work if you ask me. And talking about cooperation, about synergy, before the Honourable Minister hit the road on that day, she was keynote speaker and lead panelist at an interactive session that was organized by PwC on VATES and You. It was PwC's contribution to the efforts of the government in launching the VATES program. It had in attendance a high-quality audience and in fact had the full support of the Lagos State government. The welcome address was delivered by Governor Akinwumi Ambode, who was ably represented at the ceremony by Mrs. Olabowale Ademola, the state's head of service. Mr. Uyi Akpata is the country senior partner, PwC Nigeria.
I wish to commend the federal government and particularly the Honourable Minister of Finance for the voluntary assets and income declaration scheme. I am optimistic that this scheme, if we are successful at executing it, it will make us a tax-paying people and a more functional nation. It will also engender good governance and improve quality of life for our people.
Federal Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, delivered the keynote address.
If you study all the prosperous nations, they have one thing in common. They all have very good tax compliance rates. And if you look at all the poor nations, they all have very low tax compliance rates. We're at 6%. Ghana is at 15%, and South Africa is at about 24%. But who are our peer group currently in terms of tax compliance rate? Afghanistan is at 6.4%. Congo is at 5.9%. Libya is at 2.7%. Algeria is at 7.7%. But the truth is, even those nations are trying to improve. So we have to, as a people, make a positive decision that we are going to improve our level of tax compliance. Now, before oil came, this country was sustained on a tax system. Now, if we didn't have oil, we would probably have a better tax system today, or better level of compliance with tax today than we have. And our vision for Nigeria is to have an oil plus economy. So we'll have our oil, but we have everything else as well.
The minister painted the picture of a government now capable and empowered to enforce tax compliance, but which has chosen instead to encourage voluntary compliance by the introduction of VATES.
There were two paths that we could have taken with the data we had. One was to begin to go after people. Go after a few high-profile people, name them, shame them, take them to court, and then everybody will come in. But we decided to take the other option, which is to leave a voluntary window for people to come in and do the right thing at the right time for Nigeria. We now have, of course, with technology, the capacity to drive tax compliance in a way that hasn't been seen before. Before BVN, it was impossible to know how many accounts any individual had. Before the beneficial ownership register, people could hide behind shell companies in the British Virgin Islands, another shell company in Mauritius. All that is irrelevant from the beginning of 2018. All those veils will be lifted, and we'll be able to see clearly who the beneficial owner is. The British, the American, everybody signed up to share information on beneficial ownership register. So to an extent, there is really nowhere to hide anymore. And why is this very important? Our rate of population growth is about 8% a year. And it's predicted that in 2050, we will have the 4th largest population in the world. That means we need more schools. That means we need more roads. We need a health system that works. We need to plan today for the future generations. And the size of our budget at the moment is, again, one of the smallest. Nigeria's budget as a percentage of GDP is 11%. Again, it's always good to know who your peer group are. So Congo is back in there at 10%, Chad higher than us at 14.3, Central African Republic at 12.4, Brazil is at 41.6, America, which has one of the smaller budgets, is at 33, India 27.9, we're at 11. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the size of government, and by the way, that 11% is state, local, federal. So our capacity to deliver basic services is a function of the budget. It's a function of the budget size and the budget efficiency. How much money do we get in and how well do we use it? How much money do we get in is what we're trying to solve today. How well do we use it is where that social contract comes in between the taxpayer and the individual. If we continue with a system where a state governor's allocation, 99% of it comes from Abuja, it is very easy for governance not to improve. Let people start paying taxes, I assure you, governance will improve. How are we going to embrace VADE? We try to design it in such a way that it would make it easy for people. So we've built in certain features. For example, we realize that with the current economic situation, some people just don't have the cash. So we've said, no problem. You can pay over a number of years, but you will pay. You must pay. We are ready to take deferred payment terms in certain cases, but you must pay.
London, New York or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office, you can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC or for other transactions that require stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government covers so that you can get your receipt within 45 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
Welcome back. The program is State Tax Matters, and on this episode, we are bringing you to speed on activities surrounding the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme (VADES) recently launched by the federal government. Specifically, we are bringing you the story of the advocacy visit, the sensitization visit paid by the Honorable Minister of Finance to Lagos on Thursday, the 13th of July. Immediately after the keynote address, a panel was constituted on VADES and you.
I'm sure you're aware of a bill that's currently before the National Assembly that intends to grant amnesty to looters, effectively. People that have taken money illegally and promises freedom from prosecution. Is this VADES scheme in any way related to that piece of legislation that is currently pending? And have you received support from the National Assembly for this VADES scheme?
VADES has nothing to do with Treasury looting. VADES is about regularization of tax status. So VADES is simply about tax.
Support from National Assembly on the VADES scheme?
Yes, I mean, I think we interfaced with the Senate President and the leadership and the finance committees. It's a national scheme. So everybody really has been very supportive, and I'm sure you saw at the launch event the Senate President and the House Speaker were represented and all the governors were there. So I think VADES is a national project that every tier of government, including the legislature, are very supportive of.
So the FIRS introduced a tax amnesty scheme late last year. How is this VADES scheme different from that FIRS scheme? And more importantly, why should anyone comply with this? Is this not a trap?
Late last year, the FIRS introduced maybe a scheme, maybe it's just an opportunity for many taxpayers to pay, mostly corporate taxpayers, to pay VAT, withholding tax, CIT, and get waiver of interest and penalty. Now, this was limited to just about 3 years, 13 to 15. And the period for the remediation was very limited as well. So VAT is different in the sense that on one hand, this is all-encompassing. So it's not limited to FRS taxes. As you heard already, this is a collaboration between the federal government and all 36 states. So it covers individual taxes and so on and so forth. Number two, this is not limited to things that we already know and people that are already in the tax net. It covers what we know, what we don't know, the one we know but you haven't told us completely and not truthfully, including assets that you have locally and abroad. Covers all manners of taxpayers, individuals, families, corporate. Now, this is very different because, one, we have the executive order to back this up, and the fact that as a result of the automatic exchange of information and the agreement that Nigeria has signed up to, from Common Reporting Standard to MCA and the long list I don't want to bore you with, coupled with the intelligence we have within Nigeria, from BVN to guys who pay school fees of kids abroad, which, by the way, is not bad. Feel free to pay school fees, but you just need to try and pay the tax as well from where the income came from, as well as whistleblowing policy. Now, if you put all of this together, it's not a question of whether we will find you out. It's a question of when we do find you out.
One of the things people say is, okay, today I'm not paying the right amount of taxes. Nothing is happening. It does not seem that nothing would ever happen to me, right? So if I disclose under this scheme, is either a trap? Why do I have to risk whether it's a trap or not, right? So the question is, do you have any mechanism in place that would definitely catch defaulters after this window, such that I am sure that if I do not disclose, you will find me? Because if I'm not sure, then I can gamble.
Thank you. I think it's a good question. What we've been doing for the last 15 months is we put a team together to do data analysis, data mining. And what that team did was began to pull data from BVN. They pulled data from Forex records published by the banks, who got Forex allocated to them and for what purpose. They pulled data from, we only looked at a few areas, high net worth areas, but all the places where you live are covered because they're all automated now. So the land registry, who owns properties in the following areas. We also pulled data from CAC, who's linked to this company. And so we have been able, and I'm sure those of you that know technology know how easy technology allows this to be done, pull together profiles of people. So in many cases, we already know what people have. We also engage one of the world's leading private investigation agencies. They're on retainer by the Nigerian government. And their job was to trace assets overseas. They did a lot of work for us tracing assets overseas. They looked at things like the Panama Papers. We looked at WikiLeaks. So we've pulled together pretty comprehensive profiles of a number of people. Not everybody, but thousands of people. So what we wanted to show people is, look, we have the capacity now. The reason why nothing was happening before was because the taxman didn't know. The taxman had to go after you, and it was a very laborious task for the taxman to actually profile people financially. But technology has allowed us now to do it at the press of a button. So at the press of a button, you can link the name from a BVN to the name on a CAC record, to the name of somebody who was allocated Forex, to the name of somebody who has appeared on the register of property ownership in the UK or in a BVI registered company. We already have that. Now, from the 1st of January 2018, when the automatic exchange of information comes in, we will automatically have access to more information, particularly from the tax shelters. So things have changed significantly in the taxman's favor. So the reason why I'm sure that, we'll get you, and I don't like to use that term, reason why, well, it sounds like I'm threatening people, and I don't want to be seen as threatening. This is nice government, we're being very kind to people. The reason why we wanted to give this 9-month window was because afterwards, once that 9-month window is gone, that will leave us with those who are real tax evaders. We'll have the capacity to do what we need to do. After 9 months, I think we'll be well within our right to treat, as the lawyers say, treat as hostile Anybody that's really, because then that person is a willful tax evader. That's someone who's saying, I will not pay. And that person needs a different level of treatment.
It's a new dawn in Nigeria, and the mantra is change. The wind of change is blowing all over Nigeria and beckons to you. One sure way to respond is to perform your civic duty, pay your tax. With taxes, government generates revenue to fulfill its electoral promises, ensure regular power supply, provide good security, standard education, medical care, true total change. Individuals and corporations enjoy specific benefits, rights and privileges for paying taxes and avoid the consequences and penalties of not paying. Oil revenue is no longer sufficient to bring desired change, but your tax can. It pays to pay your tax. A message from the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Very many germane issues came up during the panel discussion, which time constraints will not allow us to share with you on this episode. Immediately after the panel discussion, a press conference was held at which pressmen and women were given further opportunity to clarify issues. More from the panel discussion and the proceedings of the press conference will come to you in a subsequent episode of Tax Matters. In an uncommon hands-on manner, in a rare show of humility and sense of responsibility, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, immediately after the workshop and press conference, hit Lagos streets, accompanied by officials of the FRS and Lagos Internal Revenue Service on a sensitization of the general public on VATs.
Do you pay tax? Well done. So we'll give you a form in case you have any other areas of your income that maybe haven't been declared. What mummy and daddy have to pay every month to the government out of their income so that we can help build schools and hospitals and do roads. So when you get home, tell Dad that Mrs. Adeosun said, please, you should go through this, and if he has anything that he needs to declare, you should go to the website. Will you remember? Okay.
Of course, as we told you earlier, the executive chairman of the FRS, Mr. Batunde Fowler, has been on the road himself. On Thursday, July 6th, he was on the streets of Abuja, accompanied by top officials of the FRS on a sensitization program on VATs.
We're here to ask for your support, to appeal to you as people who love this beloved nation, Nigeria, to support her at this time. Prior to now, various levels of government, federal government, state and local government, have relied on the sale of oil to provide the much required infrastructure and services for you and I. But it has come to a point where we all have to chip in, and chip in the way of paying taxes on your profit, paying taxes on your income, and the federal government has launched a program for those who have not been paying. You now have an opportunity to declare your income, compute your taxes, and pay over a period, so it will not be a burden on you.
This sensitization program continues, and in fact, as you already know, Thursday every week has been declared Tax Day by the federal government of Nigeria. Summary of it all: the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VATs, has taken off. It will run from July 1st, 2017 to March 31, 2018. If you come out between now and the end of 2017, between now and 31st of December 2017, you will not pay interest on the taxes that you owe. And you know that interest stands now at 21%. That's a huge sum. That's a huge relief. And penalties, which is now at 10%, will not be charged on those back taxes if you come out between now and the end of the VAT scheme on March 31, 2018. And of course, no criminal prosecution, no tax audit, no investigation. Just come out, declare those on declared income, and pay the principal sum. And the icing on the cake, you have the opportunity to negotiate to pay those principal taxes, the principal sum, in 3 years.
No matter how you look at this, it is positive. Because already the tax laws are there, and if you don't comply, the penalties are supposed to apply. So if government was to enforce immediately, then a lot of people will be out of pocket. They have to pay taxes, they have to pay penalties, they have to pay interest. Some have to be imprisoned. It's something that should be embraced.
We want to thank you most sincerely for watching today's episode of the program. We hope that you have keyed into the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme. Have a blessed day.